Hello, everyone. My name is Catherine Ferreira. I am the host and owner of Gem and Me. I want to take the time today to introduce myself. Who am I? I'm a young, proud, first-generation Latina, born and raised in Washington Heights. I have excelled in my life with adversity, hope, belief, motivation, and most importantly, the power in me. And I believe everybody has their own power inside themselves. And I want to share this platform with you to be able to explore and dig very deep inside of you to find the blessings, the gifts that you were given to become the best version of yourself. So thank you so much for joining today to the Gem and Me podcast. I hope to give you blessings, aha moments, many gifts really that you have within yourself to be able to unfold and find those within you. Thank you for listening today and welcome to Gem to Me. The power is within you. Hello, everyone. Gem and Me here. Thank you so much for listening today. Today we have a friend, a colleague, a leader, an inspiration truly. His name is Pjetër. Please help me pronounce your last name.
It's Nilaj.
Nilaj. And he's a Catholic speaker, a high school teacher, a youth and young adult minister. Born in the Bronx, he enjoys sharing his love for God with the youth and young adults and helping people to discover God's love through discussion on goodness, truth, and beauty. Thank you so much for being here today. It's truly an honor, like truly, truly, truly. Like I really appreciate you taking some time of your crazy busy schedule and being here today and sharing this space and platform because you have so much to like contribute, from your wisdom, for your love, your walk, with God and with your life and everything that you have, really projected. And I know you have so much to share today. So thank you for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be on your podcast because it's also a dream of mine one day to have a podcast of my own. So to see you doing this is amazing. It's very inspiring, and I've listened, of course, to other podcasts which have been excellent, great discussions and very inspiring. So keep doing what you're doing, and I'm glad to be a part of this as well. So to see that and to walk with you too on this journey. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So like I said, like you have so much going on, but based on all those things, obviously from introduction, those form, the passionate leader, God-driven leader that you are, and that kind of creates like semi-identities, right? Of like that's the topic we're going to be discussing today. And what does identity mean to you, particular in your own words, right? There's a definition, but like to you, what does it mean?
Well, identity for me is a relationship. So who I am in relationship to someone else, right? So in my case, I wear many hats, like you said. And a lot of us, especially these days, like I think a lot of us wear many hats, whether we're a parent, a student, and a colleague, a worker for someone, a boss, a leader. So oftentimes we're wearing many hats. And so for me, our identity has, for me personally, is rooted in the fact that I'm a child of God, and that these other things, that the other identities that I have, are part of my identity, but they're not the core of my identity. And I'm sure we'll talk about that in just a bit. What does that mean? A core identity versus a part of my identity. So yeah, I mean, it's tough because sometimes we're switching from one identity to another when it comes to our profession, our career, our role in our family. But oftentimes it's beautiful to be able to be these many people, this person in many different ways. So but yeah, it can be also a little dangerous and rocky along the way as well. So
Yeah, that's so true. And I mean, you kind of touch upon this, but like you said, so for you, identity is formed through relationships, right? That's kind of
Yep.
what I got from it. Okay. And and how do you really kind of nitpick, right? So how do you identify? Like, okay, this is who I am, this is how I identify myself, or like, I mean, like how do you kind of find out like who you truly are? Because obviously through relationships we're kind of named certain things, and I'm sure you're gonna go into that, how we are named certain things that we aren't. um
Sure.
but how do we find it? Like how do we identify and be like, okay, this is what really I am?
So, above all of these roles or these way relationships that we have, oftentimes we can get stuck in just one. So, if, for example, I am, I work for, myself as a teacher. Okay, I'm a teacher, but I'm much more than a teacher. And if I'm a parent, yeah, of course we're a parent, but we're much more than just a parent. There's a mystery behind every single human person that deep down inside we know we're much more than that. In fact, sometimes we get frustrated when people stereotype us or put us in a box, as sometimes it happens, where like, for example, outside of teaching, I'm a person who loves basketball. I love talking about God. I love sports, working and with youth, so many different things. But you wouldn't know that if you just simply say, oh, he's a teacher, period. So there's a lot of other things that we do. And also, even if we're a student, like, I think sometimes we have what in psychology we call destination anxiety, where we're kind of always like, we want to get, when we get to a certain point, then I'll truly be myself. So when I get that degree, then I will be happy and I'll be truly myself. When along the way, we should be ourselves the entire time. And that, yes, okay, let's say you're studying to be a doctor, or nurse, or a dentist, or a lawyer, whatever it is, which takes years, obviously, of schoolwork. Once you get there, you're still the same person, but now you just have a degree and you wear a new hat. So our identity goes beyond just our profession. And to know that is very freeing, because sometimes we'll put, like, as they say, all the marbles in one place, and then we'll get disappointed if something happens in the job where you're not, you're not reaching a place where you'd like to be with that. Then all of a sudden my identity is shaken. But we can't say that that's all we are. So it's important to give our best in what we do, but never to say that I'm simply just this, because there's a core identity there that we have to discover. And I think that often we don't discover it if all we do is just give our life to one thing. We have to have a nice balance, and I think that's hard these days because work is so demanding. We know that. Like, imagine someone who works in the medical field. They're giving hours and hours of their day, and they barely, that becomes almost like who you are. But you got to come home and really disconnect and say, I'm not just this. I need to now do something I love. Maybe if you love music, like, listen to music, or if you do a hobby, like, partake in that hobby. But I'm not just this. And then that work family balance is tough. Yeah, because you want to come home and you want to just, sometimes, it happens where you just want to ignore people at home. You just want to rest, and you want to disconnect, but that's not healthy either. We have to, relate to others. And there's so many, yeah, ways that to keep that balance. So
Yeah, that's so tough. I mean, from experience, I could relate to what you're saying because, work and school really was part of who I was for a very long time, right? Because that's all I knew, that's all I did. It kind of kept me busy. Um, but then it's like, okay, school was over, and then I was like, okay, now what? Right? So I found myself like, what am I gonna do with my life now? Like, I was so used to like school being my structure, my go-to for like, I don't know, like it was my happiness, I guess, or my hobby, if you will, right?
well,
So I guess I'm a nerd, but yes.
there's nothing
So,
wrong with
you
being a
know,
nerd. I'm a nerd too. So
it was like, it was like something that I enjoy, like my hobby or whatever. I mean, towards the end, my master's took a part of me, like it was a sacrifice. My undergrad, not so much. Um, but my master's definitely. And so yeah, that's so true. And keeping that balance between family and work and school and kids or parents, it's hard to kind of keep to the core, like you said. Could you tell us a little bit about that core that you were mentioning earlier?
Yeah, for sure. I think that, myself, I'm, being a Christian, being a Catholic Christian, for me, my core is my identity as a son of God, right? As a child of God. And to be straight honest, like I didn't always know that identity. I'm just simply going to church on Sundays doesn't necessarily give that to you by default, but it's, having this personal relationship, which later in my young adulthood, I started to have. And it also, whether one is religious or not, we have to discover and have silent time, right? Time where you're just with yourself. And in my case, as I had that silent time, I introduced, myself as a Christian, I brought God into that silence. And I asked God to show me, and silence is scary because we don't want to face ourselves oftentimes, and we want to cover the silence with social media, with messages and texts and people's comments about us and news and things like that, and just keep busy. But then that's probably why we can't find our core identity because we barely spend time with ourselves in silence. And in this case, like I said, for me, it was not just by myself, but I invited God into that quiet time. And it was, reading scripture and also just being aware of also where my movements of my heart, right? My heart is moving in this direction. My heart is heavy because, this thing is happening in my life, or my heart is excited because, something that I'm looking forward to is happening. To even be able to sit with that and process it and reflect it is so freeing, but oftentimes we don't have that time. Maybe as soon as something great happens, the first thing we want to do is just share it on social media or text that friend. But sometimes we just have to, also take it in by ourselves, and then for me, I catch myself all the time because I'm like, do I really appreciate what's happening in my life right now, whether it's something great or something of a challenge, because challenges aren't bad either. And so to even make that distinction, right now I'm going through a season of challenges in my life, or right now I'm going through a season of peace and a season of clarity, or lack of clarity, you never know. But to even like identify that and to be at peace with those changes and those seasons of our life and the events, it's very freeing, because then you realize that, okay, I am not my anxiety, I am not my pain, I
Yeah.
am not my I'm also not, let's say if someone goes through a breakup, I'm not the result of a breakup. I'm not a quote unquote a single person. I'm much more than a single person, right? So we even identify with our relationship status. No, I am me, and I am me, and I have to discover who this me is. And for me, really, God has helped me a lot, because I realized that oftentimes, again, my identity could be stuck in these external things rather than seeing what is in me, that who am I truly, to really get to know oneself, and be honest with our weaknesses too. A lot of times we run away from our weaknesses. A lot of times we're afraid of seeing, those thoughts that we often kind of bury off to the side and we don't want to look at. And it's okay to face them. But in my case, I was facing them not alone, but with God. So he was bringing a lot of peace to me in those moments, and I could face them, because by myself, we often overthink, we judge ourselves, we say like, oh, that was so stupid what I did, or I was, and like, to sit there with those negative thoughts is uncomfortable, but I think it's very necessary, because and this has helped me a lot lately. I've been noticing we shouldn't judge ourselves, we should observe ourselves. And there's a big difference there, because often
That's
we
deep.
judge, but we got to
We're
observe.
constantly judging, yeah,
Yeah,
ourselves.
just to watch, like, what makes me upset, and observe it. Don't judge and be like, oh wow, I got upset again. I'm so, because sometimes we do go off on the people we love, the people closest to us, but like, observe, why was I upset? Or hey, why am I not getting enough sleep? To observe and to sit in this, analyze. Journaling is very, very helpful for me. I thought journaling was corny, to be honest. When I first like thought of it, I'm like, nah. And especially as a man, like oftentimes we associate and we have the stereotype that only women journal, which is not true. So I began to journal, and I started seeing, I would go to a local church near me and just be there in silence. No one would be there. And I would just journal and write, and write with God, and write, pour out my heart on paper. Because oftentimes it's hard for us, like, whether you're a Christian or not, or whether you pray or not, like, it's hard sometimes even to like express what's going on within. So writing is so therapeutic, to let that out and not worry about anybody reading it, which was my issue. I was like, I was writing as if somebody was going to read it. Like, so I'm like, no, nobody's going to read this. So I just wrote, and then I started seeing, whoa, these are the things that are in my heart right now. And this is important, because as I was writing those things, I was also getting rid of the lie that these things are my identity, right? So, because that's the idea, to detach ourselves from those things that are not our identity. As much as we love them, like, I pray that everyone who's listening to this loves their job, loves their family, loves what they do, but that's not our only identity, right? Because when things go wrong at work, when things go wrong in the family, do I then despair? I have a crisis? No, we shouldn't. Got to know, okay, there are things that are outside of my control that shouldn't affect my core identity.
It's very interesting you said like writing it kind of obviously it's not up here anymore. It's like you're visualizing it and like kind of able to separate like, okay, this is how I feel. I'm not my emotions. This is just like something temporary that I have to deal with, or it's coming from somewhere, right? Or is based on something that happened, etc. Right? So I just like the visualization. I would say that, like, okay, I write this down and make sure that it's no longer, in my head torturing me or like overthinking it. Like you said, that we constant overthink, things that we're doing or that are happening to us or that we judge ourselves. So I really like that you mentioned that, so thank you for that tip, but definitely take it into account. I hope everybody who's listening also uses it. And so I know that you kind of touch on this, but in terms of like what you think that hinders us, like the external factors. I know you said like relationships, work, keeping yourself busy kind of makes it more difficult for us to kind of identify who we really are. And yeah, so I wanted you to kind of touch a little bit about that, about certain things that kind of happen to us or that inhibit us to actually, you know find who we truly are, or exercise it, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of, I mean, if we, there'd be a huge list of things that hinder our identity, because they happen daily and we don't really know it. And it's just very unconscious. But for example, let me give the example of social media, which often is a very innocent thing that we, partake in, and we just kind of like, we're following people, following pages, checking social media. But oftentimes that, what happens is that we base our identity on other people's opinion about us. And that is also very dangerous, because at first it's exciting, right? You post that pic of yourself and you're like, you think, we're looking cute or beautiful or handsome or whatever it is. And then we get these, we get the likes and we get the comments, and it's sort of a euphoria, feeling that we have, that people are acknowledging our beauty, our, and all of that. That's great. Awesome. But the danger there is that I need that now in order to feel great about myself, or in order to feel beautiful, or in order to feel loved or worthy. When we feel like we need those kind of affirmations in order to be truly ourselves, that's not healthy. So that's why, for example, social media could be addicting, because oftentimes, and it's not because of the new shopping cart they added like a couple of years ago. That too, that's also could be a problem for some of us. But oftentimes it's used because I just, we're looking to feel loved, we're looking to be affirmed, and sometimes it's not going to come from other people. If it does, great, that's awesome. We should really thank people for their compliments, and when they lift us up and say great things about us, awesome. But what happens when they don't? What happens when I don't get that compliment, that like, that comment, that story view from that one person that maybe we're interested or whatever? Because so what happens that oftentimes we kind of say, okay, is there something wrong with me? Is it me? And we start questioning ourselves, our identity, our worth. And And that is a problem because we're giving away our identity to something external. And I think the goal, at least for all of us, is to just feel comfortable with ourselves, whether we get praised or criticized. And when we get criticized, we shouldn't allow that to affect us either. We should take the criticism, at arm's length and kind of view it. If it's something that we agree with, great. We thank the person for the suggestion, the criticism, because sometimes those challenges make us stronger. But it could also be dangerous to always seek praise from people, because praise is great, but then we want to be able to just be neutral, where I get praise, thank you. I get criticism, thank you too. And it doesn't necessarily affect our identity. It's something that is coming from the outside that I can take in and I can grow with, but I shouldn't overthink people's comments or things like that, or be so dependent on them either, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's very powerful. I mean, social media is just, I guess, the tip of the iceberg, if you will, right? Because before social media, I mean, social media has really, I guess, magnified that problem because it's so accessible now. We constantly comparing each other or ourselves to other people, or like you said, the likes and things like that. Um, but before that, it would be like people, immediate friends or family or your neighbor or, person at work or something. So it wasn't as, I guess, prevalent, right? Or if so to that extent, so accessible. Um, but something that I wanted to mention was that, like, you kind of have to avoid expecting, like you said, right? Expecting those praises. Like, it's like happiness, right? Happiness and praise and love and all those things that we seek, that we all seeking, like we could only fulfill from God and like giving it to ourselves, right? And I feel like the world is so dependent and expecting other external things, people, whatever, you name it, to kind of fill that void, right? And I mean, I see it, before, right? Before you are by yourself, you kind of are like addicted or like accustomed to that. So like, I guess, yeah, if I buy this person, I'm gonna feel better. I guess if I date this person, he's gonna love me and I'm gonna feel better. Right. And so that's what we kind of were taught that those things will like make us happy. But then when you don't have them, you're like, or if you do have them, you're like, okay, that's it. Like, now what? Now what? Like, I'm not happy anymore. Um, and so I feel like it's so important to know that, like, if you find, like you said, you mentioned quality time with yourself and being able to love yourself and obviously love God and kind of find the spirituality, whatever that means to you. Um, that means loving yourself, taking care of yourself, and kind of valuing yourself. Because if you give that to yourself, then you're no longer expecting it from other people. And if it does come, amen. Right? Like, thank you.
That's right.
Um, but I feel like it's so essential to like bring that out because it's sad how we're living, where like, things or people, like you said, we're giving our identity out, like, you know, my happiness or like is dependent on you or a thing, right? And it's sad. It's very sad, like how you observe and you see. And obviously we're all guilty. We've all been there. We all, we're on our different paths. Everybody's on different journeys and different ways of seeing life. And you just kind of have to learn from your mistakes and, like you said, be alone and be with yourself. It's uncomfortable at the beginning. You kind of have to sit with it. um Journal could help. Talking with a friend, therapy, whatever works, but just like reading the scripture, whatever it means to you. But like, I feel like being alone is like, would you say that's the first step? Could you share with us and kind of cook up for us like little toolkit? That was my next question, actually, of a toolkit that you can share with us of something maybe that you think will like kind of line us up to be fine.
Ab- Absolutely. Yeah. For me, it's been like this toolkit has been very, very it's been very light at first, but then I started to add to the toolkit. So for one of the things that was very necessary for me was making sure that I sleep.
Yeah, so that's a challenge for me.
Yeah, it sounds so obvious because we all know we need to rest, but also to like to understand that our lack of rest also contributes to our anxiety and to a lot of other things, and even our identity. For example, how am I going to be present to others or to myself when I do spend that alone time with myself and with God? How do I do that if I'm like completely out of it? You know, we're so tired that we just want to avoid people, avoid everything. There's sometimes that's just a result of a lack of sleep. So resting is very important. And then and also like at times if you're like me, you know, you're like, oh, I could have done so much more today, and then we try to go crazy and put in like mad work at night. And it's not
Night
time.
owl.
Yeah, night owl. We'll even use that, yeah, as like kind of like, oh, I'm a night owl, when really like we should be trying to do stuff during the day, because it's gonna affect our sleep. Unless you can sleep in during the day, which that's a luxury. I wish I could, but I'm not in that boat. But yeah, so like and then we try to like make up for our, you know, for things that we can't do, and then we cut into our sleep and all that, and then all of a sudden our identity is in productivity. How productive was I today? You know, and that's not our identity either. You know, if we weren't able to do much, you got to take that, as we say in the city. I work with high school students, so I always got their lingo, and they're like, you got to just take the L, you know, take the
Yeah,
loss.
take the L
That's
for
it.
loss.
Take that L, and just like today's, and it's not necessarily a loss if we if we take a lesson out of it. And sometimes I joke around, I'm like, a loss with an L, with another L, a lesson turns into a W. So that's a win. So if I say, okay, today,
I love
uh,
it.
yeah, I didn't get to do what that I wanted to do. And I'm okay. Tomorrow I'll do better. I leave the rest in God's hands, and that's it. I go to rest, and I trust that tomorrow will be better. And it's hard because it takes a lot of trust. See, that's the thing that we often don't do. I gotta do all this by myself, when in reality, it's like, okay, no, let's, you know, as Jesus would say, like, today has its own challenges, you know. Don't worry about tomorrow, take care of today. And if you did what you could today, let's leave it till tomorrow, you know, the other thing. But the other toolkit that I have, thing to add to the toolkit, was that alone time that you talked about. Because and to be so faithful to it, you know, to be faithful to it. So for me, first thing in the morning, I gotta get up, and I avoid my phone, which is so, at first it was so hard to do because we're programmed to check our phone, and you know, we got FOMO, you know, fear of missing out, like what, fear of missing out on a text notification. 99% of the time there's nothing there that's so urgent that I need to check first thing in the morning. But we just want to know. So on purpose, I don't check my phone during the first thing in the morning. You know, for me personally, I take some time to pray. For some, it might be prayer, meditation. And the idea is to, but what do we meditate with? Well, we begin with gratitude. Gratitude is so important. Gratitude is so important because gratitude that I have a new day. I have a new chance to do better than I did yesterday. And as one psychologist once said, like, and not comparing myself to other people, but comparing myself to who I was yesterday. So who was I yesterday? How can I be better than I was yesterday? And that's very good. And but first, to be grateful, like literally to list a bunch of things that I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for my house. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for the job that I'm going to go to. I'm grateful, in my case, for the students that I'm going to see. And so many other things, like just to keep it simple, but also be specific. Gratitude helps because then I realize that, hey, life is not as bad as it seems in my head sometimes when we go through challenges. Um, and then also with our identity, we also got to watch our thoughts, right? So very important to watch our thoughts, because thoughts of the past will creep in our head. Thoughts of that are negative, you know, judging thoughts, you know, about what I've done in the past, or and they may be triggered by so many things. Sometimes they can come out of the blue. You can't control them. I can't control them. But what do we do with those thoughts? I have to literally say, in my heart and in my mind. In my case, I say it to God. I am not there anymore. I'm not there anymore. It's not me. Yes, maybe in my past I've done things that I regret, or things have been done to me that I can't, that I don't like or that have hurt me, but I'm not there anymore. And thank you, God, that I'm not there anymore, and I move on, right? And those things have made me stronger. Sometimes we don't see it right away, but they have made me stronger. But my identity is not in my past. And thank God it's not in my past. But sometimes, again, the temptation can be, if I indulge in those thoughts, to literally go in a time machine and go back there. And then that's when we get stuck. Right. And so for me, that's a big thing to have in my toolkit. This idea of when these thoughts come, they are going to come. We can't control them. Simply to say, I'm not there anymore. That's not me. That's not me. And then also the opposite can happen. I can be in the future, thinking and dreaming and fantasizing and all that kind of stuff of things. And there's nothing wrong with
We do
thinking and
it all
planning.
the time.
Say that again. That's right.
We do it all the time.
All the time, all the time. And there's nothing wrong with thinking of the future, because we should have goals, we should plan, we should always be on the grind, and try to achieve those goals. But we can't be so stuck in the future that we're not living the present. And that is, I think, the best for me thing that has helped me. The thing that has helped me the most is living in the present. I'm aware of my past. I know it. I don't hide it. I don't suppress it. It's there. I'm not there anymore. I'm also not in the future either, right? I'm not in the future yet. All I have is now, as that quote goes, right? All we have is now. And if I realize that right now, I can be happy. As you said, our happiness is in the present. It's not in the past or in the future. It's in the present. For example, maybe someone is listening and they're single, right? And they're not in a relationship, and they believe that their happiness will increase when they meet the one, right? And that hopefully that happens, but also why does it have to increase only then? It should increase each day, each moment, and it should be, you and I, all of us have the potential to be happy right now. And that doesn't mean that things are going perfectly fine either, right? So I think we equate happiness with no problems. Happiness is no issues, no challenges. That's not happiness. That's living in La La Land. But because like challenges will come, but you and I have the opportunity, all of us do, to be happy in the midst of those challenges. And that is something that's really beautiful to try to experience.
Yeah, so it's like embracing, right? Embracing everything that comes, and everything that comes happens for a reason. And it's part of the journey, it's part of the lesson, it's part of it's part of life. It's part of the journey. Actually, you know what's so funny? So today, Friday, today I release every Friday. And today it's a journey, not a destination. That's the episode that came out today. So go figure, perfect timing. And it's a journey, not a destination. And like I said, every person you meet is for a reason, but it shouldn't determine your happiness or your walk. They should just complement, your walk, not like make it. Like you should love yourself and make yourself happy and do things that fill your heart or your joy or whatever it is that you're trying to fill. But like that's your duty. Like don't let that be determined or done by somebody else.
Absolutely. I agree. 100%. And also another thing that's very interesting is that when we live this way, when we are very, very much in our identity and we know who we are, and this is a journey, like you said, it's not a destination. Until the day that I take my last breath, I'm going to continue growing and knowing myself and knowing others. Right. And so, and that's okay. I'm going to learn more about my weaknesses. I'm going to learn more about my strengths. And when that takes place, it's great. It's growth, it's beauty. And it's also very ironic because myself, as being a Christian, the cross, it doesn't look very appealing. It doesn't. I mean, you think about it, it was a torture method used by the Romans. And we Christians, we hold up the cross, right? And we're like, this is the way. It's like, what? How is the cross the way to happiness? But it's interesting because Christ instead of like cursing the cross, as many of the people did back then, because it was a way of, of torture. He actually embraced it. He hugged it. He kissed it. We have this thing that we do as Catholics sometimes, where we kiss the cross, and it sounds very like what? Why would you kiss something that's horrific? Because oftentimes those crosses that we have in life, those challenges, they actually help us to grow, and they make us stronger. They make us smarter, wiser, better. And instead of, again, being upset about the things that have happened to me that were outside of my control, I don't let those things, I find a way to grow through them. And that's so beautiful, right? That image. The cross looks different for me. I remember, hearing about the cross. I'm like, what? Why do I rock a cross? That's terrible. But now I see it's not that. It's the opposite. It's learning how to be joyful, and Jesus never lost his peace in the midst of it. He never complained. He never cursed. He was just asking for, he was growing stronger, as in that case. That, of course, we believe that he was obviously already God, but the point is that we grow as human beings when we carry those crosses in life, and instead of complaining, we really embrace them.
Thank you so much. Like that was a perfect finish line and statement. I feel like, to kind of wrap things up, you must know that the only way that you can walk your life, or like you have the power. You and God have the power to change it. Like, you might be in a certain place right now, but you have a power to change it. You have the power to change your relationships. You have the power to change your thoughts. Like, I know they come, but you have the power to change it. You have the power to change your emotions. If you're feeling sad, you can change, and try to be happy certain ways, so it's like we have the power to change our identity. So it's like you have the power. Like, don't feel like you have to do so much. And I mean, start with one step. Like we said, it's a journey, not a destination. Start, like, implementing different things in your life, reading the scripture, watching things you do, the things you consume, social media, like everything around you. Check it out, see what's like inside of you, and how you feel and why you feel this way. And I'm sure that that's going to help you, and create a better you. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And yeah, it is a journey, and it's exciting to be able to walk that journey and to discover oneself. As we cut things off that are not helpful, we all of a sudden find this peace that we all have within us. So I appreciate that. Thanks. That we find that gem in us, right? So there's a reason why it's called gem in me,
Gem
because
in you,
there's a
yeah.
gem in
You're
us, and that gem is that identity that we're looking for. So may we always find it each day.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I am so grateful that you're here listening to my podcast, Gem in Me. I hope that you continue to share, continue to listen on very important topics that I discuss in my growth and journey to what is called life. I hope that you're able to learn and explore different values and things that you have within you. I really hope to serve as a support system and a community to those who need the inspiration in that community, because I know that I needed this, I still do, but like growing up, I felt like I needed something where I can, see the examples and have a support system. So I hope to serve as such. Thank you for listening, and have a great one.